So I'm going to go ahead and open the meeting of the Select Board. Today is Tuesday, August 22nd. It is now 7 p.m. and we are in the training room at the Public Safety Complex. To start tonight's meeting, I'd like to take a few moments to honor and recognize the life of Mr. Robert Wilby. So if you don't mind, if we could bow our heads for a moment and have a brief moment of silence in recognition of Bob Wilby. Okay. Thank you. So, our first agenda item is a presentation on Black Hill Road. As you are aware, based on some mailings that had gone out, we are having some trouble with a bridge there. And so I'd like to invite our DPW director, Mr. Travis Tebow, up to give us some information about Black Hill Road.
Doesn't matter. Good evening. I'm Travis Tebow, the director for the Paxton DPW here in town. I thank you for having me this evening to discuss this matter. We've been working with some consultants, CHA, over the last several years through a grant the town was awarded for up to $100,000 to do some engineering for the Black Hill Road Bridge. The last time, to the best of my knowledge, that this bridge was rehabilitated was in 1929. The bridge is in significant need of repair. Most recently, we received a notification from Mass DOT. Their recommendation is now to temporarily close the bridge. So I'm coming here before the Select Board and you, the residents, to discuss this matter at this time. Get started. Do you have anything else to add, Heather?
No, you summed up everything perfectly.
Okay. So as you can see from the pictures up ahead, on the right-hand side is the picture as of June 22nd. Left-hand side
Sorry. Going back.
was a picture from December of 2017. There's been significant increase in the damage of this breast wall. So if you're looking, this would be the southwestern side of the bridge. If you're standing at the river on the lower side, looking to the right-hand side, that picture is what this shows here. You can clearly see there's significant damage to that abutment wall. The most recent bridge inspection report from this past spring, there's a void behind this wall holding the bridge up, roughly 4 feet deep from what they could get, from what the report is telling us. So again, the most recent notification from Mass DOT was to temporarily close the bridge. In speaking with CHA, lastly, as of this morning, they are also recommending that we temporarily close this bridge and look at a more permanent solution. From the most recent reports, they're now recommending that we cannot rehabilitate this bridge, but it's going to need to be replaced as opposed to rehabilitated. That's a substantial difference in cost from what they were originally proposing to do with injection moldings and whatnot. But the deterioration of this bridge over the last 2.5, 3 years is pretty significant. And all these heavy rains we've been having over the last 6, 8 months is not helping. That's kind of where we're at this moment in time. So I'm coming before you folks, residents, as well as the Select Board. If you have any questions, I'm certainly willing to do my best to answer them.
All right. Do either of you have any questions?
Can you progress through the pictures? Because I actually went down there and climbed down and looked at it.
Sure.
And there's been significant movement in the breast mall, especially as you enter and exit the bridge. There's quite a differential in the actual surface of the bridge structure
Correct.
versus the road.
Yep, so
I don't know
not
if
just this
Heather-
breast wall, and I don't know if we have any pictures of that or not here, but what
There was
Kirk,
some in the CHA report.
okay, what Kirk is describing, if you're actually standing on the road and look where the bridge meets the abutment, the actual slab of the bridge, on one side, the bridge is bowing out, on the other side, it's bowing in, almost as if that under breast wall is bowing out.
It's going to push out.
I think it's becoming, it's to the point where it's a hazard now, and Mass DOT's recommendation, again, is to close the bridge at this time.
Okay.
This is
That's-
some more photos, so this would be looking at it from standing in the river. You can see that would be the outside wall where that seam is, where it's starting to split. They have some arrows pointing to where there's some large voids, some missing concrete. As you've seen in the previous slide, there are some large portions where stones have actually started falling out of the abutment. So this is a marker showing the ruler, which I don't know how clear it is, but it's a little better than 4 feet it's going into that void. And again, that was the slide before, it was showing the face along underneath the abutment.
Keep going. There's one that in this report that actually tells a little bit better story of what I was explaining.
So this would be standing underneath the bridge, looking at the outlet side of the river under the bridge. You can see significant cracking all along the walls here.
It looks like there's been some attempted repairs in the past to try to page that, and
So I don't know how old that is. Again, the last thing we have on record was 1929, it was rehabilitated. So again, that looks like some more attempted repairs at one point in time or another. You can see the crack that's heading up where the arrow is pointing there. And this is kind of the picture that's really summing up the major concerns here. You can see that big void. We were actually down there this morning, and that void is roughly in the range of 1 foot. I don't know if somebody was down there pulling rocks out or if they just fell from the walls moving. With the significant rainfall we had this past spring and this summer, we had some really heavy rains.
did DPW go down there during the heavy rains and actually see how high the water came up on?
Yeah, I was personally down there, and it was up to 2.5 feet on those walls at some point in time. I wasn't down during the actual heavy rains because it's a little
Scary
tricky
down there,
maneuvering
yeah.
to get down there, especially if it's wet. But after the fact, so it was probably somewhere in the range of 3 foot, if I had to guess.
Okay.
So there's another picture of one of the larger voids showing the tape measure. That's looking into that large void. Same thing, just from a different angle, showing the tape. So this is the railings you're seeing, standing on the bridge, looking down. It's tough to tell in this picture, but you can see the seam where the abutment meets the actual bridge slab itself.
And there's quite a differential there.
Yep, yeah, that gap's about 3/4 to an inch right now. So this is one of the seams.
You can see the differential right there. That's what I was talking about. And I went down
And the
and looked at
pictures don't really do it justice. If you're standing there on site, it's moved about 2 inches. That picture is a little better shot of what we're actually looking at. So As you can tell, the bridge is one portion of that, the abutment is the other. The bridge is moving, the abutment's not. Just showing some major cracking in that breast wall. So the significance of this picture is it's actually showing that the rock is splitting in half. So it's not just where the cement was between the stones. There's that much pressure and torque from this shifting that it's actually starting to burst the stones.
Was the repairs that they did at Moore State Park releasing a lot of that water?
I'm not certain, to be honest with you.
Did that, you don't know if it had any
I
effect
did
on it or
speak
not?
with Karen, the woman that's running the
Right.
DCR facility down there. And she's also extremely concerned with their dam that they have inside there. She's been in touch with dam safety several times over the last 2 years. They're trying to get some funding to replace that dam, but that's also another major concern for us. If that dam lets go, this
That's
bridge is
gone.
gonna go.
Yeah.
That's all I have for the most
about
recent
it for
report. I can go to the older reports if you
No,
want.
that's, I don't think so.
This is the most current report, so this was as of June, and it's actually gotten a
Worse.
little bit worse over the summer just from the heavy rains that
Mm-hmm.
we've had.
And the concern would be going into the winter if water gets into those pockets because of the heavy rain.
And it's
And then we
going
have a
to.
freezing.
It's going to. Unfortunately.
Yeah. Carol, any questions?
No, it's been on my mind for a while because I was part of the request for the grant and so forth, so
Right.
I know it's been a major concern for
Yeah.
a long time.
And initially, the grant that was received, I believe it was a one-year grant for the consultants to get some work done. Unfortunately, with all the stuff we had with COVID, they had some staffing issues. We're currently in our third extension on that grant now, so it went from rehabilitating now to replacement, or coming up with an alternate solution, which we can certainly discuss some of the options that were given to us, but if anybody else has any questions, I'm certainly willing to do my best to answer.
Travis, assuming we close the road, if that bridge were still to fail, are there any other hazards that we need to worry about aside of just transportation over the road?
Absolutely. So below this dam on the western side, below the bridge, on the western side of the bridge, there's several hiking trails all through there. And Heather and I took a walk down there this afternoon, and there's actually trails heading right to where this breast wall is that's failing.
Okay.
It appears as though it's pretty heavily trafficked. So if the town does decide to take the bridge out of service for vehicular traffic, I think it's probably in our best interest to get some safety fence up, some snow fence or something of that nature to attempt to deter folks from walking towards this breast wall.
Yeah.
It's a pretty high wall. You're probably somewhere around 12 foot. If it comes down, it's going to hurt somebody if they're in
Yeah.
that vicinity.
Yeah, that's my concern, is if there was any other.
Mine as well.
Yeah, and anything with regard to, conservation impact, should that bridge fail? Anything we need to be worried about from that perspective?
Sure. I mean, if the bridge actually falls in, if it fails completely, it's going to plug up the riverway.
Yeah.
It's going to cause flooding in that area. If we have the worst case scenario where the dam lets go and it wipes that bridge out, there's a good chance it's going to wipe out a portion of Route 31 as well.
Yeah,
There is a large culvert under there, but if it's trying to wash this bridge through it and it plugs that,
yeah. Right,
I'm not certain how much water is held in that pond at Moore State Park, but I know it's also fed from several tributary
Yep.
streams, brooks, rivers. It has the potential to cause some pretty significant damage.
yeah, okay. I'm just wondering if we should contact the state, if there's anything potentially, you know, that can be done to just try to mitigate the possible structural collapse, to try to prevent things like that from happening.
Yep.
Certainly, it's not going to be enough to allow transportation over the bridge. Obviously, we know that information, but just wondering if there's anything else that can be done to help prevent any further.
Sure. You know, and I'm not trying to scare everybody. I'm just trying to inform everybody of what we're actually looking at. You know, if you take a walk, not that I want people down there, but if you actually look at the bridge, even though you're seeing this significant damage, I don't think it's going to fall tomorrow.
Okay.
I do think that we have a little bit of time, but in the perfect storm, you never know what's going to happen. You know, again, if that dam above lets go, we're going to be in trouble.
Okay.
And I don't think we've seen water coming through that with the dam completely open above.
I'm not certain of that.
In my years here, I don't recall it ever flowing that.
Yeah, I mean, several times this summer we had storms where we had 2, 3, 4 inches of rain. You know, it's not a common situation, but unfortunately the trends are looking as though these extreme events may be more common in the future.
So what, because that's a one-way road, what's the plan if there's a closure? Are you going to make one end of it two-way, or?
Yep, so my recommendation would be to close it as Mass DOT has recommended, at minimum at a temporary basis. We would, if the select board and the residents agreed to that, we would remove the one-way signs. We would set up Jersey barriers near the bridge so residents and visitors of the park could still park on that roadway to access the hiking trails. We would remove the one-way signs, remove the do not enter signs on the northern side of the bridge to allow access for residents and visitors from both ways.
I don't recall, but I don't believe that there's any residents between that bridge and
In Brigham Road. So from Route 31 to
Yes.
Brigham Road, there are no homes
Correct,
there.
yeah.
There are several homes on Brigham Road, and there are several homes on Black Hill Road as well after the intersection of Brigham.
Right.
We're trying to do what is best for the town, the community, all its residents and the visitors of that park. And unfortunately, I think at this time, to close this bridge is the right thing to do.
I'd like to open it up to any residents from the area who have any questions. It certainly is your opportunity. Just introduce yourself. You can.
My name's Alex Lee.
I'll bring you.
My name is Alex Lee. I live at 8 Black Hill. You definitely helped answer some of the questions that I had, because I think my concern, we just moved in 3 years ago, and driving across that bridge before we even saw the house that we moved into was one of the things, like, we saw that and we're like, I think this might be the place to live. So for it to be closed temporarily, even if it's an extended temporarily, completely fine with me. I appreciated the, like, make it no longer one way there, because lots of people do come in and park on that side, especially people with dogs come in that way, and then if they could go back out that way, they'd be all set. I think my concern was if it was going to be a permanent closure. That was more so when I got the letter, I was like, oh, it's going to be closed, and like without knowing that it might be temporary. And it sounds like it might be more of a complete new construction over rehabilitation, but, or if, I know you mentioned there was other options potentially for what you could do to.
Sure. So obviously, this is all fairly new to us as well.
Yeah.
Several options that were kind of talked about today with our meeting with CHA was, one, rebuilding the bridge. The rough cost estimate today to do that, they're informing us, is going to be somewhere around the $2 million marker. Another recommendation they had was to bring in a temporary bridge, if we reached out to Mass DOT, that would be able to support vehicular traffic. This would be a temporary solution, and their rough estimate on costs would be between $200,000 and $400,000. that doesn't seem like a feasible option for another temporary solution, because that's not making any repairs to the actual bridge.
Well, and I think the aesthetics of that whole view up to the park is something that we need to consider as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the third option that they kind of brought up, which obviously it would be up to the residents, the Board of Select folks to make the decision ultimately for roughly around the same cost to permanently close the bridge, remove the existing bridge, slope the bankings away from the rivers, and install a footbridge so that walkers, hikers, bicyclists would still be able to cross from one side to the other. It would certainly be a lot lesser cost than replacing the entire bridge. It would also be more timely. If we're talking about rebuilding this bridge, there's a lot of time that it's going to take to do studies and permitting, as well as the actual build of the bridge, engineering designs. This is going to be a several-year project. It's not something that's going to get done in 6 or 8 months, unfortunately. So those were kind of the options that were discussed when we met with CHA today. Am I forgetting anything, Heather?
I was just going to say a couple things. Number one is just keep in mind with the funding, the initial plan, I believe, was to go after phase 2 of the small bridge grant, which caps it at $500,000 per year. So any project we do, because we don't have funds in the coffers of the town necessarily to put towards this, we'd have to look at other funding for, including this piece. The only downside is, if they allow us to go after the apple multiple times, it's still multiple chunks, right? Because you're only grabbing 500,000 at a time. And then the only other piece I would just add to that, Travis, is just making sure the residents understand when we say temporary, it's until we can do something else, but temporary may not be 6 months or a year. That could be
It
quite a
could be
few
2 or 3
years
years,
until
correct.
we can figure out what to do, obtain the funding for it, as well as get the engineering, permitting, and actual work done.
Thank you for saying that. Understandably, I understand that the temporary might be a couple years from now, which is fine. And it's not like I have really any say in this, right? I just want to share my piece.
You
But
do.
I think my concern with being like, oh, the bridge might be closed entirely, would just be the increase in traffic on Black Hill on the other section, where lots of people walk to get to the park, including us. But like people come from all roads down the street and come up that way with their dogs and kids. And I just would be concerned that obviously if it's closed temporarily and that first section before the bridge is made 2-way so people could come park and leave, that alleviates a lot of the concerns that I had. But I just would be concerned if it was forever that it would increase the traffic on our road and make it, because it was one of those things too that we were like, I really appreciate being on Black Hill and not being on 31, where 31's people are driving 45, and on Black Hill, most of the time, people are driving like 20.
Right.
Occasionally, you get someone who's not, but I think it was that safety concern was there for me as well.
So question, if option B, which would be to install a footbridge, would the section between 31 and the bridge then become a potential parking area for people
Correct.
to park
So-
and then enjoy the park and unload their bikes and recreate?
Correct. So, if the town decided to go that route, we would obviously have to look at some option in keeping that portion of the road open, because it's being utilized by a lot of folks currently,
Right.
correct? So, we don't want to take that away from the residents, we don't want to take that away from the visitors of the park, and we don't want to do that to the park. So we would have to look at some options to, possibly put a turnaround down where the entrance, where the actual bridge is now, from both ways. These are all things that still need to be discussed. Again, this is fairly new information for us within the last couple of weeks, so there's still a lot of research and discussion that needs to go into it.
Any thoughts from the public?
We
on-
met with
that?
one of the police lieutenants and the fire chief today as well, to discuss emergency response. So it's roughly 30 to 45 second additional response time to go to Nanigan, Black Hill, to get up to Brigham as opposed to taking the Bridge Road. In that discussion, the fire chief's major concern was, well, if there's a structure fire or a forest fire there and they need to bring tankers in, they need to be able to turn the trucks around. So we'll, at a minimum, be looking at making some sort of turnaround close to the intersection or in the intersection of Black Hill and Brigham, where the Moore State Park rear entrance is there, the gated way.
Right, okay.
Okay. Tanya, go ahead. Just introduce yourself and give us your address.
Tanya Carpenter, 6 Black Hill. I am Alex's neighbor. So in the past several years, we have had tremendous amount of ice. I know, I've called you
Yep.
many a times, just letting you know that we had tremendous amount of ice that had accumulated and built up at the end of my property as well as in between our property. So I just want to make sure that if the other end of Black Hill is closed down, I just want to make sure that we will continue to get the services from DPW to maintain that road because of the ice buildup that for some reason has been, increasing the last 3 years.
Sure. Well, and again, we've been getting a lot of unprecedented storms, not a lot of snow, but a lot of rain. And that adds to all of this groundwater we're seeing. The ground gets oversaturated and now it has to relieve itself, right? So it percolates out of the ground, sometimes in the same spot all the time, sometimes it finds new spots. To answer your question, we are not going to change the way we service any of the roadways over there, with the exception of that portion where the bridge is. In the winter months, my major concern is that we are going to have to drive a truck into that road and then back into 31. I do not want to do that if we can help it. Again, this would be discussions for the future, but I would be looking to eliminate plowing to the bridge from both the Brigham Road, Black Hill intersection, and from Route 31. So we're not driving our trucks in there in the wintertime and trying to back into 31. More often than not, on little or no sleep. It's dangerous enough when we're out there trying to maintain the roadways rather than trying to back into a main throwaway. But as far as where the homes are, that is not going to change whatsoever.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Any other residents with any questions or concerns or comments? Okay, so hearing none, I will entertain a motion if somebody has one.
I'd like to make a motion to temporarily close the bridge for a couple of reasons. One, now that Mass DOT has already recommended that happen, I think that it's a liability to the town to keep it open. And I don't want to see the town encumber anything that, we could have avoided. And the second is because I think it's, quite honestly, fairly dangerous after going down there on Saturday and checking it out myself.
Okay.
Could we repeat that? Can't hear you at all.
Yeah, so I made a recommendation to close the bridge temporarily based upon CHA's recommendation and my observation of going down there and physically taking a look at it.
Right, is there a
I'll
second?
second that, yeah,
Okay.
the same reasons.
Any further discussion?
Julia,
Yes.
Kirk, is there any chance you'd want to amend that so it's just a vehicular traffic? So it's not also to pedestrian traffic, so that there's no concern over people walking over the bridge? It's just eliminating the driving over the bridge at this time?
I thought that's what it was anyway, but
That's Mass DOT's recommendation at this moment, is to take it
Just vehicular.
out of service for vehicular
Yeah,
traffic.
okay.
I
So they're-
apologize if I
I
didn't
would-
clarify that.
Okay,
I would-
so they're okay with pedestrian traffic over
At
the
this
bridge?
moment in time, that's
Okay.
what has been
I
spoken.
just want to protect the liability of the town, so,
Right.
yeah.
We'll do whatever the
happily make that
board
amendment.
wants us to do. If you want us to close it permanently for all users, walkers, or vehicular, that's fine by me, but
They'll
just
still
want to
climb
make
over
sure
the
that we're
fence.
clear with everybody and we're being as transparent as possible.
No,
I
that's
thought it was
no, that's a good
was
catch.
just
So
vehicular.
thank you.
Okay.
And I also would like to note, you said CHA's recommendation.
was
It's
Mass
also
DOT.
CHA's and
And
Mass
Mass DOT.
DOT's
Yeah,
recommendation.
he said that the first time, but then
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't repeat it exactly as I
Yes.
stated.
they did the first time.
And for liability reasons. I think I left that out the second time.
Okay. All right, so with
I'll
that,
second that amendment.
thank you. All right, so with that, I'll
Discussion.
call for a vote.
Do you want
Oh, there was no further discussion? Nope. Okay.
Okay.
All right. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All right.
Thank you very much.
set.
We will be a couple of weeks. We've ordered the equipment we need as of today. It's going to take us a little bit of time to get some signage in, to get the jersey barriers in. As soon as we get all the material in, we will be shutting the road.
Okay.
Travis, can you keep us updated on that as well?
Certainly.
Can we just ask that you keep us informed?
I was going to say the
Of
same
course.
thing. Yeah.
Yep.
And we certainly will, and I'm assuming this will not be the last meeting
No.
for discussing this, and we'll make certain that we reach out to all the residents.
Do we have any temporarily closed signs at the barn?
I do not, so I have ordered them, and they're hopefully on their way. I don't want to throw jersey barriers up down
No, no,
there
no,
without
I
having some
kinda wanna
bridge
give-
out or road
Give them a
closed
week or two
signs.
to get used to the fact.
You know, sure, I have some road closed signs, but they're extremely movable, and I don't want someone to yank them on us and
Okay.
potentially have a major hazard down there.
Fair enough.
Okay. Very good. Thank you, Travis.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. So you're welcome to stay if you want to watch your town government in action, but we're not going to be offended if you feel the need to leave.
It's riveting, though, I will say.
It's our first time, so thanks.
All right, so we're going to move on to the consent items. There are several. So I'm going to read them through, and then we'll talk about if any of them need to be moved into new business for discussion. So here we go. Number 1 is to approve the meeting minutes from the special meeting held on August 10th, 2023. Number 2 is to accept the resignation of Catherine Frasco from the AMC Scholarship Committee. Number 3 is to accept the resignation of Donna Odorsky McLean from the Local Historic District Commission. Number 4 is to approve the request of the Paxton Garden Club to use the town common for a plant sale on June 1st, 2024 from 6 a.m. to 12 p.m. Number 5 is a one-day liquor license request from Milk Room Brewing Company for a beer garden during an Anna Maria College football game to be held on September 2nd, 2023 from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. Number 6 is also a one-day liquor license request from Milk Room Brewing Company for a beer garden during an Anna Maria College football game to be held on September 16th, 2023 from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. Number 7 is a one-day liquor license request from Anna Maria College for an alumni event held on the lawn at St. Anne's on September 16th, 2023 from 12:30 to 2 p.m. Number 8 is a one-day liquor license request from Seven Saws Brewing for a beer garden during an Anna Maria College football game to be held on September 30th, 2023 from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. Number 9 is a memorandum of understanding with the City of Worcester for a sewer agreement with the properties located at 1 Woodland Drive and 9 Alreen Drive in Paxton. Number 10 is a surplus disposition request from the Recreation Department for their John Deere mower. Number 11 is a surplus disposition request from the Fire Department for their 2007 Chevy Tahoe. Number 12 is a surplus disposition request from the Water Department for their 2009 Ford E350 van. And number 13 is a surplus disposition request from the DPW for their 1996 International. So I've read off all of those items. I believe we want to move the MOU with the City of Worcester into new business. Is that correct? So we can talk about that. Anything else that needs to be moved into new business?
I don't have anything. No.
Hearing no objections, I declare that all except for number 9 have been approved. And then we will go forward with our updates from town committees, boards, and departments. So coming up first is the police department. Come on up. Yeah, that's fine. Mhm. And we have Lieutenant Bebo here. I yield the floor to you, sir.
Oh, good news. I'll start off with John Sturgis, just to go over. John previously was with us about 5 years ago as a part-time officer. Moved on, went to Hubbardston PD, and to Templeton, where he currently is working. Can you hear me now? And I talked to him just recently, asked him to come back. He came back as obviously a public safety officer. He did the bridge program. John lives in Hubbardston, married, 3 kids, 16 years military experience. Still can't hear me?
Yeah, apparently.
I don't think, that's not really a PA, so we can pretend it is, but you might just have to project.
All right, John has 16 years military experience, 5 years police experience. He just finished the Bridge Academy. And on behalf of the chief, I'd like to recommend him for a full-time police officer at the town.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you for
Thank you.
Would you like us to handle this all at once, or do you want to do one
Sure.
at a time?
You can handle it all at once.
All at once? All right, so if you would like to introduce Mr. Vega.
Second, this is Anthony Vega. He's Worcester native, 28 years old, married, 2.5-year-old daughter. He's known a few of us for quite a few years from when he was younger. Very well liked. He approached me and Sergeant Dugan about becoming a police officer. I obviously took it to the chief. We looked into it. The chief requested that maybe he comes public safety first. And hopefully, he'll be attending the police academy in November, the West Boylston Police Academy.
Excellent.
So
Very good.
it's looking pretty positive. So on behalf of the chief, I'd like to recommend him as full-time public safety officer. Be
Excellent.
sworn in.
Excellent, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for either Mr. Sturgis or Mr. Vega?
Just a comment. Thanks. Thanks for your service. Thanks for coming back.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely. Yeah, it's nice to see you again.
Yes.
So
Thanks for
soon.
your
Yeah.
ambition.
So I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to move these 2 gentlemen forward.
Okay, excellent. And
Second.
All right, great. So all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, you're appointed.
you.
Congratulations.
So much.
Thank you so much for coming on board. Get sworn in, as you know.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Yeah.
I have the same problem. I don't project.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Moving up the hill.
All right. Anita, where are you? You're up next. Come on up. So Anita's here to give us an update from the COA. Oh, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, my purpose today is not just to give you an update. It's more to educate Paxton residents, seniors, caregivers, and people who will eventually be seniors, because so many people envision the COA as bingo and maybe a Danish with coffee in the dining room. And there's so much more. So I will get very detailed. The purpose of the Paxton COA is to support and advocate for our seniors throughout the entire aging process. What, talk louder? Okay. Thank you, Cindy. Well, she's the director, so I guess she can direct me, right? No, it's okay, Cindy. Okay, 75% of the value of the Paxton COA is actually from its outreach services. These include informational and referral support services for seniors, their families, and their caregivers for all facets of home and health needs. Referrals may be for health providers, lawyers, estate planning, SNAP, fuel assistance. Many of these are designed to ensure Paxton seniors can stay in their homes independently and safely for as long as possible. There's a transportation van that is available for seniors for only $7 round trip from Tuesday through Thursday from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. This gives seniors some real independence. They can have appointments. They don't have to worry about shopping. They really appreciate the fact they can control where they're going. And I think that's essential. We don't want them driving if they aren't capable. The COA also maintains a food pantry with fresh vegetable supplies. Currently, it's been supplied by the Sheriff's Department. In the past, it's been by others, House Vegetable Stand and something like that. They also have canned goods and non-perishables that are provided by the community and others. Intervention and wellness visitation support for isolated seniors are so important. It's really easy for a senior, especially if they can't hear and they aren't mobile, to feel isolated. So these visits include efforts to prevent senior abuse, depression, with guidance available for both the senior and the caregiver, with hospice and palliative care. And we know that that's recently been really important. Weekly Meals on Wheels are available for 5 days a week and congregate meals for 3 days a week. This is to help seniors have nutritious meals at a low cost. And in 2022, 5,500 senior meals were served, and I think that's amazing, and it's wonderful, especially with the congregate. They aren't alone. They come, they may get the van ride, and they're with people. They're socializing. 25% of the value of the COA are from its diverse programs. In people's minds, that's all we are. We are. The most important program coming up on September 27th from 10 to 1 is a health fair with over 30 medical professionals who will administer flu shots, hearing tests, take blood pressure measurements, do blood work, and will have medical information for others. Socialization and continuing education are a significant part of keeping seniors active, both mentally and physically. With that in mind, there are weekly bocce, bowling lessons, IT lessons, piano lessons. An important Hearts and Hands craft group holds meetings that are available where crafts may be learned and they may be offered for sale or donations to charities. Recently, there is a display case in the senior center where many of the crafts or goods by seniors will be available for sale. Other programs include musical entertainment, craft lessons, historical programs, and often they're based on local history, which is important for many of the seniors. Since creativity is an important ingredient in maintaining a happy life for many seniors, an art gallery was recently created in the dining room where residents from Paxton and neighboring towns may exhibit their work and may even have it for sale if they wish. And there's a lot of interesting conversation about the artwork. Not only does it brighten the room, but it stimulates discussion, and that's always good. Medicare informational programs are also presented throughout the year, and Medicare obviously is very important for these seniors. A real added benefit is the monthly newsletter that Cindy and our board member, Curtis Hammer, create. It is mailed out or sent electronically to Paxton seniors. It not only informs them about all these interesting upcoming events and interesting facts, but it even has strips that are also presented by the Friends of the COA and our Bob. It has proven to be a wonderful way to introduce the COA, and we found that to be a case just recently when a neighbor of ours who Richard had given the newsletter to said, hey, put me on the list. I might be interested. And he has been a resident of Paxton for many years, but he might be stimulated to actually see the Council on Aging as more than bowling or a Danish. So hopefully that'll work. In conclusion, I hope this synopsis of what Paxton COA really is shows its value to the entire community, not just seniors and their caregivers, but to the future seniors, because much as you may not like it, you will be a senior.
Never going to happen.
It's a privilege. It's a privilege to be a senior.
And I also have September newsletter copies. I said they're invaluable. Anyway, friends and family.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyway, so are there any questions?
Any questions from anybody for Anita? You always do such a lovely job, Anita. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Everyone else know.
I just want to reiterate one thing that Anita said, which is that on September 27th, we are having the health fair from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Cindy and everybody does a wonderful job every year of putting this together. So thank you for doing it again, and it's always been a great benefit. Thank you, Anita.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, Chris, come on up.
Hello, my name is Christopher Espaduli, and I'm the chairman of the library board here in Paxton. We have had July off. We usually take one of the summer months off, and we decided to take July off. And then August, unfortunately, we had some scheduling issues, and then our director got sick, so we had to postpone our August 15th meeting, which is our big financial meeting. So we have postponed that to our next meeting, which will be September 12th at the library. Thank you for the selectmen to get our sixth member on, which Rachel Stone is our sixth member. She just got elected. Thank you. And she will be our sixth member until the next election, which will happen sometime in May 2024, which will hopefully she'll be on the ballot, or anybody else who would want to be on the ballot can so do so as well. Outside of that, I have a few things that I can update the board about here. The library building is having some issues. We have been actually Pam and Heather have been working together to get some bids for the roof. We've had some leaking in the roof right by where the staff bathroom is, so that needs to be taken care of. And with that, we've had some gutter issues, so we're going to try to do both of those things together. Since we have to take care of the roof, we're also going to take care of the gutter. And again, Heather here has been helping our Pam, our director, try to get some bids so we can see which one obviously will work. The roof leak is concerning, obviously. We have books, and so we cannot obviously have a leak in the library. So that is our priority number one, and on our meeting, we will be discussing that. So in my next scheduled meeting here in a couple of months, I'll have a more in-depth update from the library board.
Very good.
Other than that, thank you so much.
Thanks, Chris.
Yep.
Much appreciated. Okay. So under new business, I'm going to I think we'll visit the MOU with the City of Worcester real quick first, if we can. And so this is a sewer agreement. We do have a couple of properties who are on sewer in Paxton, and so there is an exchange of monies to Worcester in order to pay for that. So go ahead, Heather.
Yeah, so this recently came to Town Hall's attention again last year. There was someone who was going to sell their house who owned one of these two properties. The house is in Paxton, but there's actually part of the lot itself is in Worcester as well. So they pay real estate taxes to both. And these two properties, we've had an agreement. It's about 20 years old. It's actually two agreements. One agreement was with the City of Worcester, and one agreement was with Blackstone Valley. Upper Blackstone. The one with Worcester is directly for the sewer, and Upper Blackstone's for the depository where it ends up going. And what happened through the MOU is that it was an arrangement set up where Worcester would obtain from the town of Paxton the water usage rate. So any town that actually has water and sewer, they determine sewer bills based on the amount of water you use. Because if you use the water, you got to put out probably the same amount somewhere, right? So that's how they calculate the amount. So what would generally happen is on at least a quarterly basis, I think it was even monthly and sometimes, for the city of Worcester, they would reach out to our DPW to figure out the water usage. And then what they would do is they would then send us a bill for a total amount of water usage for the two properties. Then the town of Paxton staff would take those two amounts and we would independently bill those two properties. Then those two residents would pay the town of Paxton, and then the town of Paxton would pay Worcester. And we did the exact same thing with Upper Blackstone, except we only did that on a less frequent basis. There was a changeover of the water commissioner over in Worcester a couple months ago, and we were in the process of trying to finish up and wrap up the revision of the MOU for this, which the residents were covering, the two residents, because it affects their properties. And the commissioner said, hey, they pay real estate taxes to us, so we'd be more than happy to just take on this whole process, take Paxton out as the middle guy, and all Paxton has to tell us is how much water they use. I cleared it with our DPW staff, I cleared it with our treasurer, who's highly involved, and I'm not sure which one yelled yippee the loudest. They were both very much on board to take us out of the process on this. That being said, we had to converse with legal and get legal on board, because they wanted to draft up some documents. So after conversation with our attorney, he suggested that we actually do an MOU to replace the other two MOUs to just clarify what we're trying to do. So at this time, there's an MOU on the table. I sent it to each of you at, I think it was like 4:41 this afternoon, or 5 something after the 4:40 transaction where he finally sent it over. It is kind of time is of the essence on this. They are trying to close on the properties and get things wrapped up. So the one property at this time that he's looking to do this on particularly would be Woodland Street. He initially thought he could do one MOU with the two properties contained within, but his revision this afternoon was that he'd like to do it just for Woodland Street, so it's a lot cleaner for that property owner. So before you tonight is the MOU for Woodland Street, for the city of Worcester and Blackstone Valley, explaining everything, including the fact that they're going to be obtaining the water usage rates from us on a regular basis for that property. They will take care of all of the billing. We will be hands-free of that process moving forward.
Excellent. I'm noticing as I'm looking at the MOU that it's referenced, you're saying Woodland Street. In the MOU, it's referencing Woodland Ave and Woodland Drive separately, so we probably just need to clean it up to make sure that it references, I think Woodland Drive is the appropriate name of that thoroughfare.
I will reach back out to legal and make sure he corrects that. And I think what he was looking for in this was a motion from the board to authorize me to sign on behalf of the town. And then I'll get it notarized and get it back over.
Okay. So with that change, is there any questions, concerns? Is there a motion?
Make a motion to move forward.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. So you are authorized to sign a corrected MOU. Very good. All right. So next up, under new business, we have review and appoint a new member to the Council on Aging. And let me just get there. We have Martha Axton, 268 Richards Ave, who would like to join the Council on Aging. And I thought there was another one.
Gary Goldberg.
And then Gary Goldberg of 15 Cutler Road would also like to join. And how many openings?
1 seat available.
1 seat available. And we do have a letter of recommendation that Anita had authored on behalf of Martha. Anita, would you like to say anything?
Just that we probably would not have senior housing in the town if not for the dedication of Martha and I know that that is an invaluable asset to the town, just for the people who could not live here any longer. And so it wouldn't happen without this woman. Dedication. So many times it looked as though it was dead in the water, but she persevered. I'm amazed. I was on the committee with her, and she was going to get it done, and by God, she did. And she has come to meetings for over a year as an associate member, as I said in my letter.
Yeah.
She learned everything about the COA. You voted her unanimously to be a member, and I can see her as being chair someday. She is so focused and dedicated, and I'm proud to have her as a member.
Thank you, Anita. And is there anybody here on behalf of the other applicant or the other applicant? No. Okay. Any questions, concerns? No?
No, I know both Martha very well. We worked together. And Gary, I worked with Gary on the personnel board, and they're both excellent candidates. If Martha, you're stepping up to, if we vote for Martha to step up, could Gary slip in as associate?
Yes, of course, we would love to have that.
I'm just thinking because Gary's not here, so he can't speak on his own behalf, but would that be because like I say,
Valuable for us to have.
we don't want to turn people away.
Absolutely.
Definitely not.
Absolutely.
And like I say, I know Martha's history with the deals and all the other attempts we've had at that property. So that's all I have to say. Just like to make sure that we don't turn anybody away, if we can.
Very good.
Do you want to make the motion?
You can make the motion.
No, you know him better than I do.
So I'd like to make the motion that we appoint Martha Atskin as a full member to the COA board and reach out to Gary and ask if he would step in as an associate.
Very good. Is there a second?
There's a second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. So that's that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Barbara. Thank you for stepping up to serve. Okay. And then I have review and appoint a new member to the AMC Scholarship Committee. And we have applicants Allison Langhill of 8 William Allen Drive and Jennifer Brennan of 4 Oakwood Road in Paxton. And I know we have a letter that came in.
You have a third person, too.
Oh, and there's a third.
Yeah, Hillary Warner of 7 Lincoln Circle.
Oh,
It's me.
Hi, Hillary. And Hillary Warner. And how many openings do we have?
We have one.
One opening. Okay. And then
Must be a very popular opening, because this is the best response we've ever had.
this is, well, honestly, it's phenomenal for 2 positions to have more than one person stepping up. I mean, certainly, we never want to turn anybody away, and as Carol mentioned, and if for some reason you're not appointed to the scholarship committee, we have lots of other places that you can, come dip your toes and see what it's all about. All right. So we do have a letter of recommendation that came in from the chair of that committee, Carrie Flynn. Let me just try and find it here. Unfortunately, Carrie was unable to make it today. Here it is. Okay, so Carrie's not here to speak for herself, so I will read her letter to the members of the Town of Paxton Selectboard. I am the current chair of the Anna Maria Scholarship Committee. I would like to express my support for Hillary Warner as the newest member of the Scholarship Committee. Hillary has expressed interest in the position for the past 2 years. She has a real passion for helping others reach their full potential. Hillary has over 20 years of professional experience in managing and guiding others and is currently in a creative/retail field with yearly intern opportunities. I'm confident that Hillary possesses the qualities necessary to excel as part of the Anna Maria Scholarship Committee. And thank you from Carrie. Okay. And is there any comments or any other applicant here that would like to speak? There are none. Hillary, would you like to say anything on your own behalf?
Actually, I think she covered it in the letter, but yeah, I'm happy to help.
it's exciting to be able to contribute in any way, so.
Excellent, thank you. Well, any questions, comments, concerns? Anything that you would like to know from Hillary, who's our applicant who's here? All right. Well, hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve her to the Anna Maria
Scholarship.
Scholarship Committee.
All right. We have a motion to appoint Hillary to the Anna Maria Scholarship Committee. Is there a second?
I'll second.
And there's a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 You're it, Hillary.
All right,
Thank you.
Thank you to the other applicants as well.
Thank you to the other applicants. If we could please reach out to them, thank them for their interest, and offer them other opportunities,
There's many.
which there are several. Yep. All right, get to be back to my agenda here. Okay. You had a ZBA possibility here?
I do. So, speaking of other opportunities. So when Allison had applied, I did take a look at her resume, and I did reach out to Allison and actually have her connect with Cheryl to talk a little bit about the zoning board opening that we have. And she said that in the event that she was not appointed to the AMC, she would be very interested in hopping on the ZBA. So,
I love it.
with the potential where there were 3 applicants, I thought there was a possibility that we might be able to do an extra appointment this evening.
Very good. And that was Allison?
That is Allison Langhill, yes.
Excellent.
I'll
Okay.
make a motion to appoint Allison Langhill to the Zoning Board Committee.
I'll second.
All in favor, aye. Please say aye.
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 Done.
Excellent.
Great to hear new names.
Absolutely. I love it. It is wonderful. All right. Getting back. Okay. Request from the Garden Club for one-time use of this room on September 7th, 2023. I see you're here. Would you like to say anything?
Sure. I just wanted to first say thank you very much for even entertaining the option. So the reason we're looking to do it here is Roger McGahee, who I think we all know is our resident horticulturist in the Garden Club, and he was looking to do a.
That's okay. I want to
Yeah, no, that's okay. All right, I will start over again. Hello, Robin Tasca, Vice President of the Garden Club. We appreciate entertaining the idea. We were looking to do a fall planting program because fall is the best time to do plantings. And since we are in the process of planting gardens out here in front of the Public Safety Building on behalf of the Fire Chief and Police Chief, we thought what better way to combine both parts and do a program where Roger would be speaking. He would have a slide presentation, and then we would actually go outside and he would show us around the gardens that we're working on, some tips and tricks. So that's one of the reasons why we'd like to do it here at the building versus at the library where we normally do our seminars, just because of the convenience of what we've got going on, and he will be planting this fall. He did a similar program for the seniors earlier in the spring, and they had a talk inside and then they went outside. It was wildly successful. So with that, we'd like to repeat it for the general public. And then also, cable has been gracious enough to agree to record it, so it'll be live streamed, and then it will be on YouTube for anyone else who missed it.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, so that's really exciting.
And we have the approval of both chiefs
Great.
For the Garden Club to use this room. So with that, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the use of the training room on September 7th for the Garden Club.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you
You're all
both
set.
very much, and thank you very much to both the fire chief and the police chief. It is much appreciated.
Thank you
Very
for all
good.
you do
Thank you.
for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Thank you, Robin.
Thank you.
All right. Ms. Monroe, you're up with our
Awesome.
5-year budget forecast.
All right. Budget highlights. So first off, FY23 budget review. Oh, and I didn't even put the numbers. Excellent. Even better. All right. Under 99% estimated revenue, state revenue. Veterans benefits was 1280 under. State revenue exemptions, elderly blind was about 9,000. So just to understand those two pieces, so there's the two numbers that come in on the cherry sheets. And what periodically happens is sometimes we get delayed payments. So we look back to the past 3 or 4 years, and we could actually see the trend where sometimes what was happening is we'd get all the money that we were supposed to get in the right fiscal year, and sometimes we'd get most of the money we were supposed to get in that fiscal year the following fiscal year, which always messes with the numbers at the end, and it's just super fun. Rentals, $200 under, so 10 West, as we had talked about previously and last year, they did do the repair paid by the tenant offset from the rent. So we knew we were gonna be lower on the total amount for that. We should be caught up this fiscal year and good to go. Things that exceeded what we had estimated. So one thing to keep in mind when we do the estimated revenues, so there's 2 ways to calculate it, right? The first way is when we're doing the budget system or the budget process itself, we try to estimate what we think everything's gonna be. At the end of the year, around November, when we do the tax recap, we tweak a lot of those local receipts, and sometimes we put the numbers lower than what we had estimated them to be because something else came in higher. So for instance, for FY '25, when we had originally estimated our local receipts, the unrestricted governmental aid was $10,000 lower than what it is currently now, with the cherry sheet finally approved by all of the legislature and the governor. That being said, when we go to do the tax recap in the fall, in November, we're gonna have to take a local receipt number somewhere or a combination thereof and reduce it by 10,000, because we can't say we're bringing in more, we have to lower that number. So these numbers that are 110% estimated revenue, they're actually 110% of what we submitted to the state last year for the tax recap. The other thing to keep in mind is the state also restricts us on local receipts as to what percentage we can increase them from year to year without offering backup evidence and justification for those pieces. Now, we can always do it, and sometimes we do if there's a really good reason for it, but when we don't have to do it, we try not to. Just because it adds more paperwork and another thing for them to have to review. But in general, it's not something we run into too much. That being said, these are the numbers of where we're currently at for the estimates based on last year. If you look at the full 5-year projection piece, you'll see the actuals for FY '24. So you can see year over year what the actual numbers were coming in at for those different pieces. And then if you ever look at Larice's revenue sheet itself, you'll notice that her revenue sheet in many occasions is lower for the estimates on the local receipts than what's on our sheet when we predict what we're going to get, if that makes sense. So these are just some of the numbers here. Nothing here is too surprising. The biggest one's probably the investment income, mostly because as the interest rates started going up, Donna was very good in having foresight, contacting the banks and making sure that that increased interest was applied to the town. So it increased us from what we had budgeted, which I think was like $4,000, back up to 25.9. So, or 25.9 higher than that, so a little over 30,000, which is pretty exciting. Teacher retirement, again, that's another one of those that's very similar to the veterans piece on the last slide, where it all depends on what they give us when. So that likely overshot from the year before. And I don't know why those numbers aren't there. I just don't think this slide sheet likes me. Let me just make sure I have the right one. Hang on one second. I just don't want to. I want to make sure I updated this and it actually saved, and otherwise I'm going to be sad. Bear with me one moment. My apologies. I know it's not the right one. There we go. Okay. Let's try this again. Oh, look at that. Slightly different information. Fantastic. All right, so revenues. Year ended, we $213,000 higher than the tax recap submission. So that's always a good sign, a good thing. Keep in mind that a couple of the revenue sources, when you look at the revenue sheet, actually include, one-time things. So anything that closed out, we closed out, the Extra CARES Act. We got the okay from the state to do that. So that was like $20-something thousand. So some of this is miscellaneous pieces that contributed to that 213. Insight, interest rates are higher. We talked about that already. And despite the tougher year, we were able to meet the minimums of all the categories. Some of them were really tight. Like if you look at the building department permits, we budgeted 30,000, we came in at like 30,500. So it was very tight to what we budgeted. We usually like to see it a little bit more conservative, but we knew it was a rough year in that piece. All right, so we covered these pieces already. Let's see, estimated revenues, expenses, approximately 327,000 less than what was budgeted, is what we spent this past year. So that's also a good sign, right? So generally, when you're looking at for a free cash guesstimate, you're looking at the unused expenses and the increased revenues, and then you have to wait for any additional calculations that the state might say you have to hold on this, you didn't get reimbursed for that, or so forth. So Donna and Larissa are working on doing year-end paperwork to be able to submit for free cash. So we will have a finalized number, I imagine, within a month or so, depending on if we can put in the busiest season or the slightly less busy season for the state to be able to handle and process. All right, so things that came in under budget by more than $10,000, cemetery, Department of Public Works, employee benefits, legal, police, property insurance, building maintenance, reserve fund, town administrator, and waste collection. So employee benefits, so what my understanding is when we had budgeted for the health insurance premiums for FY23, we were still using as a base the prior information and the rates we had with the old insurance carrier. And we did receive a savings when we switched to Maya, and those numbers were realized last year. The 83,000 is probably actually even a little bit better than that because we did do some transfers out of that line year end. Waste collection. So remember, the thing with waste collection is it's a wash for us the way we try to budget it. So to the best of our ability, we try to make sure we say we're going to get X dollars in expenses and X dollars in revenue so that they match. That being said, that year we had $10,830 less that we expended. Now, the hard thing with waste collection is it is a set fee for our residents, but our fee month to month changes, right? So if Mark throws out all of his garbage that he's ever had in his entire life, 1 month, that might increase the tonnage. If it increases the tonnage, we get charged more. If the escalation of the contract goes up because of the increase of gas, or diesel. Not gas, thank you, diesel, then the costs go up. So those are things to keep in mind. Highway departments, so we had extra funds there. Compensation still had extra, purchase services and supplies. Generally with the wages, so we generally budget enough for the wages for the event that any of the employees of the highway department under union have the opportunity to get additional endorsements or licensures, and then get an increase based on those pieces. So we did have extra money remaining. Cemetery, they had extra, it's not a lot. The way the compensation was, there's a little bit extra, purchase services and supplies. Reserve fund. So Mark, I did this for you. I hope it works. So ACO with Rutland was $9,459. TA procurement certification, $1,885. Diesel fuel, $47. Oh, I added extra comma. Sorry about that. $4,723. Retainer IT support, I think it was $14. And tree warden purchase services, $9,217. So we ended up with the overall balance at the end of the day of $14,701 out of the original $40,000 that we started with. Okay. Police department, we did have a vacant officer position for a good portion of the fiscal year, so it saved us because we weren't paying that officer. However, we were then paying overtime. So the numbers kind of, if you look at it and you're like, well, that doesn't seem like the right amount that would cost for an officer, it seems lower than that. It's because you're offsetting with the OT. All right, expenses that came under $1,000 and, more than $1,000, but under $10,000. It's a list, it's a good portion of them that were under budget, not substantially, but by something. No, I don't know why tree warden's there. That's a mistype, so ignore that one. Actually,
I was about to go, yippee!
Wait a
yeah,
second.
no, I don't. I think that's a mistype. My apologies. I used the slide from last year, so I probably got excited. FY23 budget takeaways. Mail excise is continuing to increase annually, so that's good. We had approximately 327,000 of unused expenses. FY '22, just to put it in perspective, we had 412 of unused. So even though we have a substantial amount of unused expenses, please note that that's still about 83,000 than we had the year prior. My prediction would be for year-end FY '24, you're going to see even a smaller amount of that because our budgets were tighter. The tighter your budgets get, the less access you're going to have, right? And I think I just put that there, so we're good. All right. Any questions on FY '23 before I proceed to FY '24?
No.
I thought, wasn't Jeremy here?
It was. You had to leave childcare reasons.
Oh, I thought he just got bored of my presentation.
No.
Okay.
He sends his regrets.
Okay. All right, FY '24 budget update. Recap of the budget forecast. So I think this is important. So I started doing the forecast last year, and I wanted to see how accurate we were. So last year, according to the slideshow, I expected a $500,000 deficit. What changed? We threw in $87,000 for operating stabilization. We threw an additional $90,000 for the ambulance. Wachusett Regional School District came in $50,000 less than we had initially, or I had initially guessed, right? I had budgeted for 5%. They came in at 4.18. It was about $50,000 less. Health insurance, I had expected to go up $50,000, but that was the higher number from the prior insurance company that we use. Not only did that not increase by $50,000, actually went down by $120,000, which is a difference of what we had initially anticipated it to do by about $170,000. And then we did about, give or take, about $100,000 in general reductions, right, from all of the departments and budgets. So that's where we came up with the $500,000. So I was actually pretty happy to see this because I felt like I was relatively on point with what I anticipated. So it meant that it was a meaningful exercise to do. FY '24 budget notes, internal transfers. So we did do two so far. We did Town's Insurance. We had to transfer $4,765 from general liability to injured on duty because injured on duty came out higher than we had budgeted for. And IT, because when we had initially figured out the IT piece, we were looking at doing the structure of the IT contract different with the IT consultant versus having like a full IT external department. So when that changed, we just moved money from one line to the other. Larissa has a spreadsheet. She's keeping track of it, and she'll post it on a monthly basis. She hasn't done it yet because she hasn't posted the FY '24 year-to-date budget expenses. So when she does that, she will throw that up there for the time being. Areas to watch. So the only one I'm currently concerned about at the moment is the DPW, mostly because, as we know, our mechanic is out on military leave for a period of time. We're having a heck of a time trying to fill a temporary mechanic position. We do have a strategy, so we're working a couple things right now. But in the meantime, if anything breaks, we have to bring it to a shop. We tried going out to get a fixed price and procurement for both small equipment and large equipment. Small equipment, we got no one because none of the local shops have enough people to even keep up with their current clientele, let alone take us on and at a fixed rate. And the larger companies who are mobile, we only got one bid, and it was for something around the lines of $200 an hour for heavy equipment, which put us into panic mode because that seemed like a lot. So that's just that's an area to keep in mind, right? We'll have to keep watching that between the wages lines will probably be okay for a period of time, but at some point we might have to transfer money from the wage line to the purchase service line, and at some point we may have to go to reserve fund as the year progresses if we can't resolve the issue sooner than later with getting an in-house mechanic, because stuff breaks. Unless you do mechanic on the side, Mark. No, okay, just checking. All right, any questions on FY '24 so far? Okay, FY '25, or nope, I lied, financial trends first. So local aid. So here's the percentage of increases for local aid. So this is everything. This isn't just unrestricted governmental aid. So last year when we had done this exercise and we did the revenue projections, I had projected 3%. I was thinking we'd be consistent with, if not exceed, what we had seen in the prior administrations relative to the governor's budget. So years past had been like 3% increase in unrestricted governmental aid. This year, governor's budget was about 1.9%. We eventually did get over 3%, but that wasn't until it finalized through the House and the Senate and went back to the governor for signature. The other increases you're seeing are mostly the land one is the one that went up. So, all right. Means to a balanced budget. So you can see here, so I got red, pink, and purple. So red is the free cash used, pink is ambulance receipts used, and operating stabilization used is the purple. So you can see from FY20 to FY24, with the exception of being FY21, the amount of reserves that we're using between free cash, the ambulance receipts, and then operating reserves continues to climb up. So everything we have, we keep throwing in. Okay, any questions on that? Okay, awesome. FY20, oh, nope, try again. What am I on? 5-year financial forecast. All right, conservative approach, state aid, we assume a 2% increase. Past few years has been closer to 3%. We'll see where we land. Additional funds assumes continued use of availability of 400,000 ambulance receipts reserved. And in this case, this was before I even had those initial numbers, 500,000 for free cash, which is still probably just about where it seems conservative, but the right amount, because we don't know if we're gonna get any deductions because of reimbursements that aren't in yet for some of those other pieces. That being said, here's the tax levy numbers. So if you're looking, you have prior year tax levy, 2.5%, new growth. You'll see moving from 25 forward, I kept it at 80,000 for the time being. Bay Path excluded, so you have the exclusions, the overrides for school and municipal, and then the overlay. The overlay is pre-calculated average of the past couple years. It has to be more than the 5-year average of the budgeted amount with the state is what they require. Okay, all right. Cherry sheet assumes 2% increase in unrestricted governmental aid. And then everything else is there. You'll see in FY24, state-owned land jumped to 140. I know I don't have the years prior to that, but before that was like 118, 120. So it went up substantially on state-owned land. Okay. Local receipts revenue. So here you see it relatively conservative. I did have a conversation with Donna Kuchar the past couple of days. She attended the Treasurer Collector School last week, and they were
Cautioning.
Thank you. It's that ing part's not coming. They were heeding caution when it came to doing local receipts and said make sure you're conservative. Particularly, they did say that quite a bit with investment income. That even though the temptation is to increase the investment income because we've had such success this year that, they're not overly confident that those numbers will continue. So they said to heed on the side of caution, and you could see that number I kind of level funded across the board. And then miscellaneous recurring, and then non-recurring won't show up until actuals because, again, that's something we can't budget for. Even if we know we're getting it, like we know we're selling X piece of equipment and $2,000 is coming in, we can't put that forward the next year. It has to wait till it rolls to free cash and then we can use it. Additional revenue, so FY24, that just covers the numbers there between capital and operating. And then you see the ambulance receipts and free cash. Last year, we used every cent we had of the free cash of the 564. And like I mentioned, I had conservatively put the 500,000, although my best guess would be by the time we get into FY26, that 500,000 will be a much lower number because we're going to end up a lot tighter on the 24 expenses. No major changes on expenses year to year. Stipends, committee compensation, I just level funded them. It says 23, it should say 24. So whatever numbers were this year's budget, I just carried forward for this model. And non-union employees, I did use a 3% COLA, which is about what the the union folks are getting. Here's my reference sheet again. So you will notice that certain percentages, so I have FY25 through 29 here. I do the factors. So generally for the non-union COLA, I did 3%. Committee compensation, I kept the same. Police COLA, it's higher than 3% because you have the educational incentive, you have the other pieces. Overtime, payout for unused vacation and so forth. And this was my best way to try to figure it out. I also looked at past year trends to try to figure out what the percentage increase was to try to get a good number there. I did the same thing for EMS fire. DPW was a little flatter. Employment contracts, for the most part, about 3%. Supplies, I figured 1.5% for just normal escalation of, costs going up. I bought a jar of jelly 2 months ago for $4.18. It's now $6.18. That's definitely more than 1.5% inflation, but figured 1.5 will average out for the things that go up and the things that don't. Elevated costs, so some things I put on the higher rate because I knew they were going to go up higher. Just because we've been around, we know that certain things like oil or diesel and fuel are likely to hit that 5% increase more so than the 1.5% increase. Rochester Regional School District, again, I budgeted this for 5% again. It could come out less than that. Last year, they ended up balancing at the end of the day at 4%. But in conversations that we've had as regional town administrators, it seems like they're still concerned about their finances moving into the next fiscal year. So I rather budget and say the number's a little bit higher. That puts us at each percent is about $60,000 to $70,000 increase. So right now I've budgeted the 5% piece. But again, the nice thing I like about the spreadsheet, assuming no cells get interrupted, is simply that you can change any of these factors over here and they automatically input back to the spreadsheet and update those numbers. Vocational, I did a 25% increase. It seems high, but they've been ranging around 33%, right? So some years it's 17%, some years it's higher than 30-something%. So 25% seems in the middle. Again, a 25% increase for vocational does not look the same as a 5% increase for Wachusett, right? So 25% is about $78K for the vocational increase, which is a lot less than $370-some thousand for 5%. Health insurance, I did hear a 12% increase. I talked to Donna today, and she also said they were looking at 10+% increases for health insurance. Last year, I think we negotiated that down to 7% by begging and pleading. But I anticipate that, we're going to be on the higher end this year. But again, these are easy numbers to adjust by simply going in and playing with factors. And then electricity, 3.5%. Any questions on my reference sheet or factors? Okay. All right, debt service. So just to show, so this is non-excluded debt. So, right, we have excluded debt and non-excluded debt. Excluded debt, just like the trash, is a wash, right? Because we raise it on the revenue sheet through taxes, and then we pay for the debt and the interest down below. Non-excluded debt is debt that we've absorbed within our operating budget itself. You will see here that it goes out to FY29, and there's no significant change really until we start getting to FY27. So from 24 to 25, we are paying slightly less than $2,000 difference. The year after that, we drop by another $13,000, then we drop by $34,000, then by $2,000, then by $17,000, and then, believe it or not, FY30, we're at zero for this. But it's going to take a few more years to balance out. But any hopes of trying to use some of this to go back into the regular budget, it's not happening right now. Okay. Part 5, 25 considerations. Forecast, estimated revenues, $15,978,107. Estimated expenses, $16,655,007, with a deficit of $655,000. So all this includes, and the additional expenses other than just the operating budget, is the road stabilization, right? That's a wash. The 123,000, because it's also raised on the revenue side. Mm-hmm. And then this also includes the very high cost of the greenways for $1,100, which we can always take out, but I left it in for the time being, under the estimated expenses. FY25 budget drivers, so approximately $667,000. Regional school district, about $362,000. Vocational school district, about $78,000. Central purchasing, about $12,000. Regional dispatch will go up by about another $38,000, right? So we're going from picking up 50% of the cost to 75% of the cost. So all I did on that was simply take their the 50% we had, double it to get to 100%, multiply it by a 3% increase, and then multiply that by 75% to figure out what our cost would be, and then subtracted the new calculation from last year's calculation to figure out the difference. That only took me 3 tries to figure that out, so I'm glad I sound well-versed. Health insurance expected about 10%, 10, 12%, 75,000, and retirement about 13%, about 102K. I did check that number with Donna Kuchar as well, and she thought that was likely accurate from everything we know. Fixed costs, Mark. So these are things that we have to incur regardless of pretty much however many employees we have or don't have, however many, whatever stuff we have, whatever vehicles we have or don't have, right? Town insurance. We're always going to have to pay town insurance, $239,000. Wachusett Regional School assessments, that would be, again, this is the projected amount, 7.8 million. Vocational assessments, 608. Waste collection, again, it's a wash, 429. Debt excluded, wash, 465. Debt non-excluded, 97K. Employee benefits, so this is health insurance for retirees, 700 Medicare, 774,000, and retirement, 881, and central purchasing, because as long as we have buildings open and we have vehicles, then we have fuel, and we have electricity, and we have diesel and gas, which is 198K. So that puts us $11,510,868,000, or $869 that we can't really touch. So when you're looking at, oh, where can I take a savings? The savings doesn't come from these lines. These are kind of set cost, right? Potential reductions, same conversation we had last year. You know, the biggest thing I can come up with this year, and it seems minuscule, but it's the biggest one I can figure out on my own, is, you know, a savings of maybe 40,000 if we have the rec director move over to the revolving fund. To date, they had about $210,000 in their balance. So it's something they very likely, from watching for the year and how well their programs are, could probably absorb without a problem there. Convert trash to services to enterprise fund, you're looking at a very tiny savings. Again, it's mostly usually a wash, but there are benefits to doing a enterprise fund that aren't necessarily budget related. Water indirect costs, so things that we're not currently doing, we can pick up a few more $1,000 potentially. And then compensated boards, you know, that's a high $8,731 you could potentially pick up. But otherwise, I don't have a lot of ideas from my seat of budget reductions to look at. Summary, budget drivers, approximately $667K to the budget. FY25 current numbers predict a deficit of over $500,000, and decisions to be made on next steps. So for the next meeting, my goal is to have the board and FinCom give some thought to the following. Is there a desire to do one budget or two budgets this year? Shall we just do the budget that's a balanced budget? If we do a balanced budget, then we're going to have to do guidance for reductions of current numbers to be able to get the budget to balance. Or do we do above that and do a budget contingent upon successful passage of an override addressing town needs? So one budget would be the first, two budgets would be both options. Direction, guidance for reduced budget. Do we have board and FinCom have priorities that they'd like to address? Are reductions equal across the board, or is there a different way to do them? Non-union COLA decision. Do you do 0%? Do you do other? And the budget calendar for FY25. That is the conclusion of my lengthy 37-slide slideshow for this evening. Are there any questions?
Any questions for Heather?
A lot to digest.
Yep.
What was that, Kirk?
A lot to digest.
And I will send this out. I know I just finished this evening, so I'll send it out to everyone as well and put it on the web. And I'll attach the revenue and expense predictions as well. I know I sent them out to everyone last week. I did make some minor things if I found any errors.
Julia.
No other questions? Mark, do you have any questions for me?
I will. Thank you, though. Mark, do you have any?
Any questions? How could I possibly follow that?
Do you have your own slideshow?
What's that? No, I don't.
Okay.
I think soundbite summary is the results for FY23 were good. I think you made the point that FY24 is going to be tight. And you made the compelling point that the preparation of the FY25 budget is going to be very challenging. What's not in the mix is the fact that there is an appetite to try to set some money aside for stabilization and capital depreciation, which we have depleted and gotten away from that for a number of years. We also, which is another committee, but it'll find its way to the board and to the Finance Committee, is the capital needs requests are going to be enormous this year. So this is going to be a very, very challenging year. Unfortunately, to paraphrase former Celtics basketball coach, Larry Bird's not walking through that door, and Powerball's not walking through that door either. So we've got some really hard decisions to make, and it may be particularly unpopular. I'd like to get a copy of that in my inbox and share it with the Finance Committee. I'm here this evening, I don't want to get ahead of them. I want to share it with them before we answer some of the questions about one budget or two budgets and the like, but this is good information to start early in the process of what's going to be a very challenging year. We worked together last year to balance it. I think it's going to take everybody, department heads, select board, Finance Committee, Capital Improvements, Planning Committee, to balance this year's budget. It's going to be tough. So,
I agree.
but good information overall, so thank you.
Yep. All right.
I think I said that just the way you wrote it, Heather. Is that right?
Nice
You
job.
just sent me a note saying, just say it sounds wicked smart.
All right.
I think the
So-
footnote to this is the Finance Committee is probably going to convene a lot sooner
Yeah.
this year than has historically been the case. Don't want to commit to a time or a date or a deadline, but I can say it's not going to be, the first meeting is not going to be January 15th. It's going to have to be sometime in the fall.
I think it makes sense to get a jump on it early.
Right.
Okay. Heather, there's a separate agenda item for FY23 financial review. I think you covered that? Yeah, okay.
We were just trying to separate everything to make sure we were covered.
Okay. And then the last item under old business is DPW Building Committee to review the committee organization charge and DCR update on the advisory determination of applicability of the Wetland Protection Act. I
Want to say
will
that again?
Let that go back over to you. Yep.
Sure. So if you remember a couple months, I don't know, couple weeks, couple meetings, at least a couple meetings ago, we had talked about, we had finally got the results from DCR, but we had some follow-up questions relative to the DPW property and clarification as to what they were actually opining on. We reached back out to our consultants, Weston Sampson. They reached back out to DCR. They had forwarded us a email with some responses. I believe I sent that out to the board when it came through to answer those questions. Travis and I were both happy with the answers. Weston Sampson was happy with the answers. I'm kind of setting things straight. Concerns were mostly, making sure that we were good to go on building a septic, that we were good to go on understanding what their interpretation was relative to the footprint, because we could only increase the footprint by X percentage, but the question was it the footprint of the current existing building or footprint based on the entire lot? And we got clarification that it was the latter, which was very comforting to know, because if it was the former, that was going to be more of a problem there. So where we currently are with those approvals is, if you remember, we had an earmark from the state at the last budget cycle that took quite some time to come through. We have it. We are currently working to put together a budget as requested by the overseeing department at the state to be able to get the materials so we can get a contract and then get started on the work. So what we're looking to do for that property right now is install a septic system. So we worked with Wayne, our health sanitation engineer, for the town to make sure that, we incorporated what we needed to in estimates of cost, including engineering and what size we would need for the septic and so forth. I'm sure we'll be in great touch with him as we proceed. But we try to get an estimate on that. We are also looking to install in the area when you're looking at the bays, the one that's all the way to the left when you pull in towards the back, there's a large shelving unit. And the idea there would be to remove this shelving unit, make that space kind of closed off so you could have more of an office space there, and then install 2 bathrooms. So it would increase the use of facilities over there, plus it would be a straight shot to the front of the property where we would have to put a septic. So it'd be better than having to dredge underneath the entire garage to get to this current bathroom where it is. And that would increase the sanitation over there. It'd also have a functioning bathroom too, in fact. We would be saving money at the end of the day because we wouldn't be pumping on a regular basis. So the other thing we were looking at to put there is looking at the cost to put a more of a formal gate at the entrance so the guys don't have to get out of the vehicle every time they're arriving on off hours. And then we are also looking at if we can feasibly do it, and we don't know if we can because we think it's going to be too much, but see what we can do for diesel and gas above ground storage. Because again, we're looking at, in this property, because we don't know when we're going to be able to do something to that existing building or how long it's going to take. We wanted stuff that was going to be long lasting and work for either building for the most part. I mean, the 2 bathrooms maybe not, but you're not talking big money for throwing up a couple walls and some, a vanity and 2 toilets in the grand scheme of things. And it would make it I think, a much more comfortable environment over there while we're pursuing the process. So that being said, the DPW committee itself. So the idea here, we looked back, we were unable, between Donna and I, to find an existing charge for the committee. We thought it'd be very helpful if people had a specific direction of where we were going as the committee. And that being said, I drafted a committee charge. I pulled stuff from all over. Anytime I could find a building committee charge that existed. I was just trying to give very clear direction. But the first thing to tackle was, the understanding, if it's still the select board's desire, to actually build at the current existing site. Remember, there was a period of time when I was at the meetings. Sorry, I skipped pages there. I was at the meetings with the building committee, and we had talked about which site location we were going to use. Well, now that we have clarification from DCR that we can in fact build on that location, first question I think from the select board we need an answer to is if that's the site you want the committee to focus on, or if there's a different site we should be looking at, or if we should be looking at alternatives or options. Once that question is answered, then the question is, who do you want on the committee? So just like we did with EDC, right? We did it a year ago. We reevaluated it to see what was working, what wasn't working, and recomposed it. Was not super creative on this. I literally went into other building committee charges throughout the Commonwealth and pulled, who they thought were important individuals in those communities to identify, and I put it here. Again, this is just my proposal to the select board for consideration. Just like we did with EDC, once we posted it, we welcomed anyone who was formerly on that committee to then reapply and, see if they're still interested. I mean, a lot of time has gone by, and once you have a specific mission and specific deliverables, people may align to those or they may not. So, and then you have deliverables down here, which I tried to be straightforward. It looks like there's a numbering issue there I'd have to fix. Design and conduct a survey of town residents for feedback on what they would support for a DPW building, utilizing funding from the special article. So a couple years ago, we have leftover funds from a special town meeting article. As long as we stay within the scope of that, we're okay. So we just have to look at the lines and make sure. But I think most likely the survey will fall within and be pretty minimal. Work with current consultant Weston Sampson using funds available to revise the current feasibility designs, incorporating an advisory determination of applicability, the response from DCR. Hold public hearing meeting on materials, provide opportunity for public feedback. Revise, resubmit plans to the select board after public hearing. Prepare informational materials, estimated timeline, cost estimates, taxpayer impact figures for initial review by the SB. And schedule and hold at least 3 public session informational meetings. So again, this is from Heather's brain. So it's totally up to you guys what you would like to do with this. I'm just presenting what's in my head on paper to all of you for consideration.
Okay. Any questions or comments?
Nope.
I'd just like to say, I think it's important for us to be specific when we're laying out a committee, and so that they have some direction, and this accomplishes that, so I appreciate it. I know the DPW building has been a challenge, and will continue to be a challenge to try and get this to go forward. We really do need it, and so it's going to be critical to get buy-in from the community so that we can support the funding in order to be able to do it, especially during difficult budget times. So I appreciate this. I have nothing that I would change at this point. Any changes?
Other than the numbering.
What's that, Kirk?
Other than the numbering, I don't see anything that needs to be changed.
You want me to change the numbering? But this lets us know if people are paying attention.
5 and 6. Yep. I think the membership makes sense. I think that 107 Holden Road is our only real option as far as a location.
Yeah, we looked at a lot of different options, including having two, maybe three different options, and it just didn't, the feasibility just wasn't panning out. So
Yeah.
I think we're kind of stuck there,
Right.
in my opinion.
Yep.
I agree.
We're never really stuck, but
Well, unless you want to.
it's probably the lowest
Eminent
cost
domain.
possibility to have a place to build something.
Right. Yep. All right. Well, if nobody has any changes, could we make a motion to adopt this committee charge for the DPW building committee?
I'll make a motion to adopt this committee charge for the DPW building located at 107 Holden Road.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So we're going to do the posting for these new positions,
Yes, ma'am. And we'll notify the current people, so if
which
they're
will probably,
interested.
some of them will obviously fall into these categories anyway. So,
Yep.
I expect so. Yep.
if not all of them.
Excellent. All right. Anything else you need from us on that, Heather?
Nope, I think that's it for now. And, just like with the EDC, we'll watch how this goes once we start getting the group to meet and so forth, and then if we need to change anything or what have you. And I'm sure, I'll be back with updates as we have them from the earmark and so forth. So just to clarify, I think I already sent an email, but since town residents don't always get that email, the amount we have is $200,000. So originally I thought it was the 125 for the DPW and the 75 for the zoning, but apparently I misread that line. It's 200 for the DPW, which is more exciting.
Yeah.
Yes.
We can do more.
absolutely.
And as soon as they emailed and said, you need to spend more money, I said, oh, I'm so sorry, I'll get right on that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. No, that's great. I mean, I really do think that that's going to be a huge help for them down there. They've been working in, less than favorable conditions for quite some time. So. All right. On to, I think the TA update is next.
oh, excellent. All right, so I don't have too many updates here, but I'll hit some of the high-level ones. So Board of Appeals, so we're down to 2 vacancies now, which is very exciting. And I'll update the other positions on my TA report before I publish it. Community happenings, the only one I did not include, and I will include, is the health fair, September 27th, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Departmental updates, so building department, so I did do a quick rundown of the number of permits. So we finished FY '23 with a total of 300 permits, down from about 54 permits from the year before, which ultimately was only 3 less building permits. So remember, building permits in this case captures electrical, plumbing, gas, all of those pieces. So it wasn't too much difference there, which is good. FY '24 is off to a good start in building permits. July reached 33 permits, where in the past 2 fiscal years, we only had 22 permits each year. So things are looking positive for the time being. Of those permits, 16 were building permits. Compared to the prior year, there was only 9. Of the 16 permits, 3 commercial, AMC baseball field, the Paxton Center School kitchen hood, First Congregational Church lift and shaft. And of the remaining 13 permits, they were 3 for bathrooms, 1 for a deck, HVAC, siding, doors, in-ground swimming pool, 3 roofs, an addition, and a replacement ceiling. Let's see. Oh, okay. Let's see, I have the breakdown of all the numbers, so if you want to see in my little charts on the actual report, you can. I'm not going to read them out loud because I will bore people and Scott will kill me because they're super teeny tiny on my screen. DPW, so we're working on the second round of posting, as I mentioned, for the temporary DPW mechanic. So we do have a couple ideas that we're working through right now. Library, as Chris had mentioned from the library earlier, we're currently working on the gutter bid and the roof bid. We're also looking at HVAC controls. So we did the emergency repair last year of the boilers. Unfortunately, we didn't think about it, and it just wasn't something that evolved. We needed to update the HVAC controls because they're not currently compatible with the current system in the boilers. So heating and ACing, even though we have the ability to heat now, which is fantastic, it's not really operating at the optimal temperatures and the most efficiency. So they're looking at that piece as well. The library does have trust funds specifically set aside for the repair of the library, but ultimately it's the decision of the trustees to decide how to expend those funds. So I'll be going to their next meeting in which those items are on there. We do have the bids out to get the numbers back, so they have those to review, and those are due on the 6th of September, I believe, currently. We do have 2 non-mandatory walkthroughs for the gutters and the HVAC next week, but we have a mandatory for the roof. The roof is one of those things, if you don't see it, I don't know if I can really do it justice and writing out the specs for it. So we wanted to make sure that people who are serious about the roof, the flat portions, low slope roof, would actually come on site to review it to make sure they're giving us an accurate quote. So that will be next week. And just like with all of our pre-bid conferences, there's probably a 75+% probability that we do an addendum afterwards because we have to update specs based on questions that we have. Let's see, it's library piece, IT. So we've been working with a representative from Suzer IT. Started the slow transition from the server to Office 365. The server, about 2 weeks ago, I'd say, reached capacity. People were having trouble because anything they were saving on the server could no longer save. This is not something we did not expect. We knew this was coming, right? We knew that the end of life of the server was very near, as well as the capacity for the server was very near. We just got there, I think, a little sooner than we were necessarily ready for, so transition has begun and we're getting there. Slowly but surely. We start with, people who've been here forever, which would be Donna, who's taking up all the space in the server, and trying to free things up that way, so we're trying to do it logically. But Susie's doing a nice job of doing it one at a time, slowly, and trying to work with people on how to do other things and make sure they're secure backup and etc. So I will be meeting with our designated IT director on a weekly basis. They've been coming on site every Wednesday, which I think has been really helpful. People have found that very great to be able to work with them. So far, so good. We're going to hit, the normal hiccups that you hit over the way because they didn't know something that they wouldn't know because they don't have the 20 years or 10 years of understanding why it is the way it is. And we still have a lot of fun with things that are set up through the server and through Office 365, and they don't necessarily always mesh, so they're finding those entertaining. But in the grand scheme of things, I think we finally fixed Kathy's computer.
Oh, good.
So troubleshooting one part at a time, I think we're there. All right, finances, so grants. So I did send the board an email, so we got word, and it looks like the governor has signed off on the final budget. So we have 2 more earmarks that are coming to the town. One in the amount of $27,000, one in the amount of $50,000 from this current fiscal budget. $27,000 is for recreation. So I had put in, after soliciting everybody a number of months ago, requests in the various dollar amounts, ranges requested by Ann Goby's office, including recreation earmark, playground repair and mulch for $4,000, adjustable basketball hoops at the Paxton Center School for $18,000. Those are internal. So the current ones they have to manually install. This would be the electronic version. And Wentworth bathroom repairs for $5,000. I don't actually have the money yet. I don't even have official notification yet. I don't even have a contract. So as I get those pieces, I will proceed, including going through capital, because some of them exceed 10,000 mark. So I'll make sure I send that stuff to you. But as of right now, it's just promise on a piece of paper that we're going to get money. Some people have had concerns. Some towns in the past, it's an earmark. they don't see the funds. I haven't had that experience with them yet, but, you know, just to be on the safe side. And the other piece is for the town common for an earmark of $50,000 for design feasibility and traffic study for the town common town center. I searched in the document I sent Ian Goby, it wasn't there. I think this might have been something I had mentioned previous to Kim Ferguson when I first started over a year ago. So it was not written, it was verbal, and she must have wrote it down in her notes and put it in this round. So it's pretty exciting that it's there. And I have to say that I'm excited, but Travis is more excited. So, outstanding pieces we already talked about. Procurement, nothing exciting there. Cable access equipment, the RFP for that's due tomorrow. Let's see, other things we talked about the last meeting. Projects, we've already talked about Black Hill. DPW earmark, I gave you the update. The Hills at Paxton Commons, so I think this is the first TA report since all of this resolved itself. So just an update for those at home. So a few months ago, received concerns from residents about the increase in monthly rates at the Hills. We reached out to legal counsel, our state representative Kim Ferguson's office, and relevant state agencies. In the end, we confirmed that the town and the Mass Housing Partnership have an interest in ensuring that the rental rates are affordable and comply with the current rental adjustment figures issued by the state. At this time, the Hills at Paxton Commons is in compliance with all requirements. Residents experience issues or concerns with rent prices at the Hills in the future are encouraged to contact my office, and then we'll reach out back to the state contacts and have them do a deep dive and look at anything that they need. But I sent that all to you guys. Are there any questions on that piece?
No.
No, everyone's good? Okay. Zoning bylaw earmark, we already talked about that, so that's a $75K. We met again as the steering committee a couple weeks ago. I think our next meeting is around September 26th. We had sent out the survey. We used the light company for the first time. We hit a couple hiccups. So it ended up being the ones we manually mailed out and didn't go out through the light company are the ones that everyone received. The light company one ended up, it won't go till next month. So when you get your bill next month and you get a survey and the survey is dated July 27th, I know it's dated July 27th. I'm sorry. Next, I will never put a date on one of these again, just in case it gets caught up through any of this. I've had a number of people who've been fantastic and returned the survey, and they all circled the date and let me know that I have the date wrong. But we had printed out the letter before I realized that it wasn't going out right away, so it wasn't enough time to advance. Anyway, good news is we've only sent out, those 500 surveys, and we already had over 50 responses.
Oh, that's great.
So we've had good response rate thus far.
Yeah.
And that was, I think, within the first couple days when we got those results. CMRPC, Central Mass Regional Planning Commission, they're the ones who are consolidating all the results on their end. So we don't see them as they come in. So it's not like a live stream on my computer where I just get excited every time the number goes up. So I have to check with them to see what the current calculation is, but we're hoping that once the final piece goes out, it'll go up even higher. In the meantime, we started working on the MBTA zoning piece, which is a requirement that we're going to have to meet at some point. And they are working on locations for properties that comply, and then once CMRPC finishes putting that together, it will go to the planning board and then the select board. So hoping that's coming up. Job openings, temporary, full-time, benefited, mechanic, heavy equipment operator, and always a police officer. Just leave the police officer on there. Seems like it will always be an opening. Two other updates. Number one, on Monday, Julie, as you mentioned earlier, Bob Wilby has unfortunately passed. Services for him are on Monday, so town hall employees and the council on aging employees will be attending the service. So those buildings, we did post it there, and I think we sent out a news announcement, will be closed from 10:30 to 1. Anyone at home who wants to look at those arrangements, they can go online to find them. If you can't find them, let us know, and we'll let you know where those are, so you can look those pieces up. And was there any other update that I had in general? I don't think so. I think that's all I had, although there's something, but I'll think about it as I drive home. Okay.
All right, and I don't believe we had any correspondence, which is why I skipped that over, but I want to make sure that I address it. Public comment? Mark, anything? Nothing? Got nothing. All right. Anything from you guys?
No.
Nothing. All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
When's our next meeting?